It is maybe, other than the first and somewhere in the middle, some big games here and there, perhaps the most important edition of the Hudson River Derby because it is a playoff matchup that takes place between the New York Red Bulls and NYCFC. Glenn Crooks is the radio voice of the team in blue. And Crooksy, I don't think that's overstating it, do you? That this game has so much meaning because of the postseason. These teams have known each other since 2015. There's been good games on both sides. There's been blowout wins in both sides. There's been ridiculing on both sides. But now it's all about out of this 90 minutes, who is the team that's going to be left standing and still the opportunity to play for MLS Cup?
And I think it's safe to say it's two teams that you're never quite sure what to expect on any particular game day in 2024. I did a thing. So while I was away for a while. So I had these long plane rides and I went through each year. I wondered, my question was, why have these guys never met in the playoffs before? I mean, it seemed almost impossible. Like finish fourth and fifth in somehow you meet. And it just, most of the time it was a deficiency by one team or the other in terms of trying to advance in a playoff round. So it's really crazy. It's been close before, but it just hasn't happened. And yeah, I don't think it's overstating it at all. To happen to the postseason, it's the most meaningful one, maybe other than the first game.
It's a game that will be played at Citi Field. You know it better than anybody because of your affiliation with the team since they came into the league. Tell me from a standpoint what you would describe the differences of playing at Yankee Stadium versus Citi Field. Now, Red Bull, for the first time in the series, played at Citi Field during the course of the regular season, so they're a little bit familiar with it. But for the common everyday person who says, I'm so used to watching the game at Yankee Stadium, and now all of a sudden it's at Citi Field.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more importantly, maybe for the players, I think it's an easier venue for the players to adjust to the opponents who haven't played there very often. Yankee Stadium has the way the field is set up, some of the optics for players, like on the broadcast side at Yankee Stadium, behind home plate, that's a very wide area, and then the stands are many feet away from the touch line. And I talked to Maddie Lawrence, my broadcast partner, once. I said, Maddie, are we imagining it, or are more crosses and services overhit into touch from that far side to this side? And he thought, yeah, I think that's the way because the perspective is so difficult. I don't think you get that sort of issue at Citi Field. I remember Luis Robles told me, interviewed him once, and we were distinguishing between the venues, and he admitted that he screwed up a cross once at Yankee Stadium because it was just just the whole venue and where the stands were and the space between. Yeah, he said it's very tough, especially for the goalkeeper.
Both teams coming out of, I'll say, surprising upsets in the first round of the playoffs. NYCFC beating
I'll
higher
say.
seed Cincinnati, Red Bull knocking out Columbus in the two games. And overall in the East, Crooksy, I mean, it sets up to be just one of the strangest years ever, right? 1, 2, and 3, all out of the postseason. Now all roads potentially go through Orlando, depending on how they do with Atlanta. And I think realistically, whether you're NYCFC or you're New York, you are sitting there thinking, man, if Atlanta pulls this upset, we'd be hosting
Why not?
the Eastern Conference Final. And at this point, why not, right?
Yeah, it's very wild. And how are you going to not suggest that Atlanta's got a very good chance of beating Orlando based on how things have gone there? And Rob Valentino apparently still has not wrapped up the move from interim to permanent head coach, despite how everything's gone there. But here, this came from Hudson River Blue today, so I got to give them credit. They cover New York City pretty thoroughly. 26 teams have reached the MLS Cup final since the 2011 season. Only three to finish outside the top three spots in their conference have won. LA Galaxy, Seattle Sounders, and then New York City was one of them in 2021. So it's rare. And I think a team that finished below fifth has never won MLS Cup. So there's a lot of history on the line here for both teams.
How about from this standpoint, NYC better during the course of the regular season in the matchups against New York? How much credence at this time of the year do you take from those couple of games from you and your coaching background and now your broadcasting background? The old adage is it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. But what does NYC hanging their hat on from those results earlier in the year?
Yeah, I do not go with the adage, it's hard to beat him a third time or a
Well, of
fourth time.
course you don't, because you're the team on the other side that is looking to
No,
win
it's got
3 in a
nothing to
row.
do. It's got nothing to do with the team. Against Cincinnati, every time, once it got to like 4 or 5 without, losses in a row to Cincinnati, it was like, well, we're due. Well, you're not due. You just got to go out and win the game. Here's what I'll say. Emil Forsberg played very little part in those first 2 games. That's a huge consideration, which you and your listeners and viewers know better than me, having seen all those games. But I know that he makes a huge difference in what happened. And even the few minutes that he played in both those games, you could just see the level of the team went up. But here's what I'll say about New York City. They have done a good job this year of limiting the talisman of their opponents. And the two in particular, one, Lionel Messi. Messi, he did get an assist in that 1-1 game at Yankee Stadium, but he had he had no shots on goal. He had one shot attempt on a free kick and he missed the target. In the run of play, he didn't have a shot. And he was really taken out of the game. He was dispossessed 8 times, I mean 10 times. Now, how often does that happen to Messi? So, and then the other one is Lucho Acosta, who played very little role in the 0-0 draw and then the penalties, and New York City advances off of that, and they did a good job with him in the regular year too. So, New York City does have a record of limiting anyway the talisman, but Forsberg, he's different than those two. Also, he's bigger, he's stronger, and he just has some other qualities. But it's him and Sandy Rodriguez and Alonso Martinez on the New York City side. And Martinez comes off scoring his first international goal in 19 games for Costa Rica. They fell a little short of meeting the U.S. in the Nations League. They lost on aggregate by a goal to Panama, but it's I'm those are the 3 key players to me. Those 3 right there.
Well, give me this one, Glenn, to close, because I don't think there's many secrets between these two teams at this point of the year. Clearly, the Stars will have to play well. I always say, going into any game, in big games like this, you still need your best players to play their best soccer. But give me the guy for NYCFC that is the X factor guy, the guy that for City to win, not the Stars, give me the guy that flies under the radar a little bit, that if City is going to win this game, he has to play well.
Ooh, well, they have so many guys who contribute in different ways, but I think the way I'm going to go with this, and I don't even know if he's going to start the game. How about that? I'm going to go the route of I don't even know if he'll start the game. But Micha Ilinic, right back, 19 years old. I would imagine Nick will start him. He has started the last 2 games ahead of Tavon Gray. One of them was because possibly Gray was away from the team for personal reasons, but he just performed internationally for Jamaica, so I think things are good with him. I don't know what the specifics were there. But Ilinic, he's a guy that can create, and he doesn't seem to be much like a John Tolkien, a young player who doesn't seem fazed by the moment. So I think I'm going to pick Ilinic.
All right, I like that. Go outside the box. That's how you've lived your life, isn't it? Outside the box, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Glenn, appreciate you coming
Well,
on, giving us a couple minutes. I know you have a busy day. I heard you all day long on Sirius XM FC. You're a
well,
star.
I'm gonna have to share some pictures of the Caribbean with you, man. It was quite a trip. Nations League and watching St. Lucia and Curacao, Grenada and St. Martin. It's let me just put it this way: the Caribbean's quite an interesting place in soccer. Very interesting.
Glenn Crooks, Caribbean soccer expert. Appreciate you giving us a couple minutes here, buddy. I'll look forward to catching up with you on Saturday.
Thanks, Matt.